and welcome to MusicReach, everybody. We are sitting down today with Gary Cain from the Gary Cain Band. How are you doing, Gary?
I'm great, Corey. Thanks for having me.
Are you warm in Austin, Texas?
Well, I guess by comparison to Canada, I probably am, but it's down kind of like single digits today, so it's cold by Texas standards. But I've skipped the winter essentially down here, so it's nice.
Other than the obvious of Stevie Ray Vaughan being from Austin, Texas, what brought you there?
My wife got a job down here a few years ago, and so I ended up kind of going back and forth between Canada and the States for about 3 years, and then finally made the move down here. So that was really what drew me down here. But Austin's always been kind of the musical epicenter for me.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my favorite artists came from here, and it's a great music town, obviously. So that was an awesome side benefit of it, for sure.
Yeah. Is there any places you'd recommend people check out in the blues community for Austin, Texas?
There's a lot of places down here. I mean, there's music every night of the week. Saxon Pub's pretty cool. There's lots of places like that. I basically just look for artists I really like and try and see where they play. But Sea Boys is really good. Continental has stuff down here quite often. So
nice.
Yeah, my cup runneth over as far as live music goes down here.
Yeah. So the rest of your members in your band, do they follow you down that way, or do you kind of have to fill in those two spots? I know you normally play with Tom Nagy, the bass player, and
yeah,
Don McDougall, is it? Who's drums?
Yeah, Don's my drummer. So yeah, we're still together. So I just got back over the holidays. When I was back, we did a short tour back up in Canada, and then right now I'm just booking festivals for the year.
Okay.
So once I get my festivals all set for the summer, then I'll kind of book tours and club dates around that. And so we'll be traveling together for that. So, and so far I can't announce it yet, but we've got one in Europe so far, and then we've got some in the Midwestern United States, and then we're hoping later in the year it'll be Western Canada, but there'll be a bunch in Canada or in Ontario and probably Quebec as well. So.
Wow, so you sound pretty busy. Have you done Mont Tremblant's Blues Festival?
Yeah, we did that last year. It was a blast. Yeah, we played main stage once, and we played 2 club gigs there as well. It was we really had a great time.
Do you remember who the main headliner was for there?
Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
Wow.
I think they were the major ones. And then actually they came and checked out our club set after they were done, which is pretty cool. I didn't know they were in the club until afterwards. The owner told us that they were checking us out, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's quite a performer too. I actually saw him open up for Eric Clapton about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I know he can move quite a bit, even though he's on the slide.
yeah, he's killer. I really like him.
So is it? I see you've opened up for George Thorogood. Now Robert Randolph at Mont Tremblant. You're getting some big names there under your list.
Yeah, well, the Thorogood thing came about because we did the International Blues Challenge down in Memphis in 2018. And when I was down there, I met the tour manager, George's tour manager. I was a really cool guy, and we just kind of hit it off and we're chatting. And then he came in, checked out our set when we were in the semifinals, competing down there. And then I think it was a couple months later, he contacted me and said they needed an opener for the show at Massey Hall in Toronto. And of course I said, hell yeah.
Yeah, Massey.
So yeah, we did it. It was awesome. I mean, it was a dream come true. It was a total blast. Like we were on cloud 9 for a few days after that gig. It was so much fun.
Yeah, you can't turn down Massey Hall.
No, it was amazing. And I guess, is it closed now? I guess it was going through renovations or something. So it was.
Really?
I think they're closing it for like a year or two because it's really tight in the back. The backstage area is really, really tight.
Yeah.
You have to load in through the front doors, and like they carry your gear. Like there is no rear load in.
Really?
Even Thorogood's, after the gig, Thorogood's whole tour bus and all their gear had to be loaded out through down the aisle past the seats and out the front door.
Oh, geez, I didn't know that.
Crazy.
You think they'd build a back door after it being so famous now, Massey Hall?
Well, that's what they're doing. I guess they're shutting it down for like a year or two so they can actually build out the back because it's been a pain in the butt for them for years, I guess.
Well, hopefully they invite you back. I'd come check you out for sure. It's not too far from Kitchener-Waterloo, as you know.
Yeah. We'd love to go back there again. That's a real fun venue to play. It's funny when you get up there, too, because I've seen shows there, and it seems like when I went out on stage, I thought it'll be like being at a baseball game more where people are fairly far away. But, man, people are right up close on you. So
yeah,
it's as big as it is. I think it was 2,300 people they get there, or 2,700 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's under 3,000.
Yeah. And it was full, so it was quite a trip, but it still feels like it's fairly intimate, like people are right up on you.
Yeah.
And then when you play, when you get like an applause break or something, the energy off the crowd is just unbelievable. It was amazing.
Yeah, you kind of feed off that.
Yeah, it was incredible. We just had to try and keep ourselves from getting too overcharged. Really, it was a big jump.
So do you prefer that, a more intimate show, or do you like the big festivals like you do in the summertime?
I like them both, actually. The festival crowds, like it's really fun to get energy in a closed room like on Massey Hall, where there's a lot of people, but it's a closed room. The energy is like really intense. Mm-hmm. But out at an open air festival, it's a little looser, but it's a ton of fun. I like playing both. I mean, I can't really say. I like to do a mix of them. The club shows are great. If you get a packed club, there's nothing like it, where people right up on you, and you get to chat with people afterwards. Whereas at festival, I mean, a lot of times you chat to people afterwards when you're signing CDs, whatever, at the merch tent. But it's a different thing. But the festivals are a blast. I mean, they're really good.
Yeah. So rewinding back just a little bit, I know you went to Humber College for music and to study guitar. But do you remember a time, that moment where you first heard a guitar or played a guitar and you realized, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tackle this with everything I got? And
yeah, I mean, I'd have to think back to the mists of time, but definitely it would have been Angus Young of AC/DC would have been the thing that did it. When I was younger, when I started listening to AC/DC, I just fell in love with it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I used to make my mom listen to, like, if my mom was trying to get stuff done around the house, I would bring a little ghetto blast and be like, you got to listen to this solo of AC. You know, it was like the whole Outta Rosie live solo off If You Want a Blood. I think back and I laugh now, like my mom's like, this kid's coming out forcing her to thing. And, you know, to her credit, she listened to some of the stuff. You know?
Good for her.
But I have to laugh how out of touch I was back then. But she had a classical guitar, like an acoustic classical, actually.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned to play on. I just kind of sat down with it and started picking out, I think it was Highway to Hell or something, by ear on the classical, and learning that stuff. And then finally, I think my parents said, you know, he seems to be really into this. We should probably get him some lessons. and I bounced around a couple teachers, but didn't really stick with lessons. Or it was hard to find dependable guitar teachers, I think, was part of the problem back then.
Yeah.
For a while, but yeah, to answer your question, it was definitely had to be something by Angus Young. I used to just walk to school with a Walkman back then, I guess.
Yeah.
Dating here, but with just the music just cranked, you know, just walking to school, listening to it every day, and it was just, I love that stuff. I still dig it, but Angus Young was the man back then.
You knew that was the point, eh? Where.
Yeah, well, my best friend back then, he was a killer drummer, still is. And he kind of got me into AC/DC. So he was playing the drums. Mm-hmm. And then I just go over to his place and we'd tape a microphone to my mom's classical acoustic guitar and plug it into his parents' stereo system. And we would play in his drum room. I'm sure it sounded just awful. But we were rock stars in our own minds. So
yeah, you probably felt like a rock star.
Yeah. I feel like I should call up his parents and apologize, though. Now I think about it.
So who would you say, other than Angus Young, because you just said that was a big influence when you were younger, who would be your top 3 musical influences and why?
Well, I went through a lot of different guys, guitar player wise, after Angus Young. I got into heavier stuff. I got into Metallica, and I got into like some of the stuff like Joe Satriani and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was in my teen years. And then the Stevie Ray years hit, which, I mean, a lot of guitar players go through that. Man, when I first heard him, it was like being hit by lightning. I couldn't believe how good it was. And I remember my parents, we were on vacation, and my parents gave me some money to go to like a tape store, I guess, a record store back then. And I bought, I think, 2 of his tapes. And when I listened to them, I spent the rest of the vacation in the rental car on the tape deck. Like, they were going out to do stuff, and I was like, just leave me in the car with the keys turned so I can listen to this tape. And I just got obsessed with him. Like, I just sat at home and just played his tapes back, play, stop, rewind, play, stop, rewind, and just lifted everything. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan was just a monster, man. That guy was still to this day is an absolute monster. And so that was definitely what got me into the blues. And that's when I kind of realized that AC/DC was really just a blues band. Mm-hmm. Listen to the Bon Scott years, like they were a blues band.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan was just like, you know, a definite game changer for me. That's what got me into it. And then I started going back and looking at guys like Albert King, who he's probably my favorite pure blues player on guitar. And then after that, it seemed like there was a lot of players trying to imitate Stevie Ray Vaughan, myself included.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like everybody was kind of doing a hollow imitation of it. There was guys like Kenny Wayne Shepherd would come out and do like, but it was kind of like, hey, this sounds great, but it's just an imitation of what Stevie Ray was doing, and nobody's doing what he did, which was take something and take it further.
Yeah.
And so that seemed the blues that style of blues, at least Texas blues, seemed to get a little stale, and I was having a hard time figuring out what to do with that next. And then along came a guy named Chris Duarte.
Yeah.
Who is probably to this day probably my biggest influence on the guitar. And he kind of just took that whole Stevie Ray Texas blues thing and just twisted it up and turned it on its head and kind of nailed it shut, I think. He had an album called Texas Sugar Strap Magic that just like basically, have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it was in 1993 it came out on Silvertone, and he was kind of hailed as the next Stevie Ray, which there was it's one of those turning up every week, it seemed. But he was legit, and he did his own thing with it. It was so funky and so good. And he basically, for my money, kind of said, okay, this is the end of that. We need to do something different with it, something new. Mm-hmm. And so I just love his abandon. Like, he just goes for it. He's the most ferocious, like, fearless player I've ever heard. And I've seen him live, I mean, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 times. And he actually lives in Austin now, so I've been out to see him a bunch of times down here. And he's just an insanely adventurous, like, just, fearless player.
Yeah.
And doesn't confine himself to the blues box at all, which is, so I kind of took his approach and sort of decided to go off in my own direction as well and get away from trying to be a blues player.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my, I still find him inspiring. I go back and listen to that guy, and every time I see him live, I'm just blown away.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check him out. I've heard the name, but I don't think I've actually listened to a full album beginning to end. But I've heard that name, so he must be making his way through the blues community, because I've heard that name.
He's been around for a long time. So that first album was '93. So I think he's on to album like 14 now.
Do you know if he ever played with Joe Bonamassa?
I don't know if they ever crossed paths or not. Bonamassa might have been a little bit after his time, because Duarte's popularity kind of faded. Like, he was a big, like, pretty widespread and popular in the '90s, and then he's not quite as, I don't think, popular these days. But yeah, it's not quite as mainstream. I think honestly he's just too good for a lot of mainstream ears. Like, the stuff he does is a little bit more dissonant and out there. Yeah. But I mean, for my money, I think he's just too good for me, a lot of mainstream listeners. You really kind of got to commit to listening to him live. Like, you're not eating chicken wings and talking to your girlfriend. You got to be
focused in.
You got to pay attention, because he's doing some crazy stuff. So.
And you can appreciate that, knowing what he's doing. Yeah,
it's inspiring, man. Every time I go to see him, I just come back and think I gotta practice. I just gotta get shit. So.
Well, I'm sure many people think that when they see you playing too, because you're one of the top players I've seen. So
thanks, man.
Bringing up to that, what would you suggest guitar players work on as a practicing tool? Or I notice your speed is excellent, and same with your hybrid picking.
Yeah, hybrid picking. I guess I should mention Danny Gatton as a big influence too, because that's where I picked up on that hybrid picking.
Yeah.
I guess probably for most guitar players, the most neglected thing that guitar players don't do is work on their time. And I mean, I was guilty of it for years, and still for me, that's my biggest annoyance with my own playing is my time. Like, when I hear myself in recording and I'm rushing it, or it makes me cringe. And that's really the difference between when you hear somebody, you can hear somebody play a million notes, and you can hear somebody play just a few, but if their time is good, that's what makes them sound good. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's like the most important thing, and probably what I work on most these days. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. A metronome is definitely an important tool. Mm-hmm. And then also recording yourself, listening back and listening critically to hear what you did. Because, I mean, every time when you're playing, you always think what you're doing, well, most of the time you think what you're doing is in good time, right? Or you're doing your best. But when you listen back and get an objective listen to what you're doing, you can hear sometimes that you're a little early, or, you're a little late. For me, it's rushing. I think I just get excited and rush, and that's what most players do. Yeah. So for that kind of thing, I mean, you just got to work with a metronome, and sometimes just leave it on a real slow, like maybe 40 beats a minute or something, and just try and groove between that click and just catch yourself when you're ahead, when you're behind. Mm-hmm. I use Cubase a lot, which is just like a DAW, like a recording program.
Okay.
So like Tools or any of those.
Yep.
And so I use that to record myself. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll lay down just like a kick drum on 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll have no guide for time for like say a couple bars or whatever, and just keep playing, recording, and then I'll have the kick drum will come back in and I'll see where I ended up.
Mm-hmm.
Try to go longer and longer without the metronome to see how I can kind of keep the groove going. Or I'll just try to play a passage of like quintuplets, and then I'll map out quintuplets at perfect time on Cubase and see where mine line up, and am I rushing certain ones, am I bunching the first 3, that kind of stuff. So it sounds a little bit obsessive now that I describe it.
No, but I think it gets you to that level that you're at is by being that obsessive a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the thing is you just got to really give an objective listen to what you're doing and figure out where the problems are and be honest about it. And then you got to figure out a strategy for working on how do I fix this thing, right?
Yeah. So
a lot of people, they have like a passage, like a long passage they can't get down, or they just can't quite get it. And usually it's like one mechanic or one little part of it that's screwing them up, or their down pick or their up pick is leaving them in a bad position. They can't recover and then go the other direction, or that kind of thing. So you kind of got to slow it right down. You got to try, really be methodical of pulling it apart and figuring out what's going on with it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that the danger is that you don't know what your weaknesses are, right? You really got to listen to yourself and be honest about what's wrong with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or what could be better. And for me, it's almost always my time.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be one thing. The other thing would be vibrato. If you play blues, you really got to have a good vibrato.
Yeah.
And something I hear a lot of people do a vibrato where when you're going up and down in pitch, they're not always hitting the same pitch. So the vibrato will kind of do this and then here and then there and then here. And that doesn't sound good. Mm-hmm. Or it's just out of tune. Yeah. Or it's fast or too narrow. I like a real wide muscular vibrato. Like I like a slow, wide vibrato. Like Philip Sace, who I think is just a killer player, has got a real nice wide vibrato. Mm-hmm. Gary Moore, I don't know if you know Gary Moore, it was almost a little bit too much. He had a real crazy wide vibrato. I think of the singer from Iron Maiden, was named Bruce Dickinson. His vocal vibrato was just
really
like off the hook. Like I like a real wide and not too fast vibrato.
Yeah.
And there's guys like Joe Bonamassa is a guy who's he's got a fast, kind of shallower vibrato that honestly I don't like at all.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's just a matter of taste, because that guy can do anything he wants on a guitar. So if he's doing that, he must want to.
Yeah. But
for my taste, I like a real nice wide one. So
yeah,
I worked on that for a while, just trying to get the pitch right and make sure you're consistent with it and not, going too fast. Some people just grab the guitar and just shake it, and it's not really controlled. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a frantic shaking of it. You really have to kind of work on that.
So when you do your vibratos, are you using your wrist more to bend up, or are you using your finger muscle to use that?
You got to use the wrist, otherwise
using the wrist.
So you got to, usually most vibrato you'll do. I'm trying to give you the finger here. And this is where the interview went horribly wrong. But if you're doing with your ring finger, which is going to be your strongest finger, you just got to make sure your other fingers support the string underneath it, and then it's just a matter of rotating that wrist underneath.
Yeah, kind of the way at least I was taught was kind of like turning a door handle.
Yeah. And then depending on you play, I play thumb over the neck.
Yeah.
So I get a nice angle there.
Yep.
And so that's how we play. Yeah.
That's good. So you play the note too on the 6th string?
I do a lot of that where I play the note on the bottom. That's one thing that I definitely learned from Chris Duarte, was just that he will jump like octaves. Like a lot of players, you get caught into playing linear scalar. You're going up or you're going down.
Yeah.
Whereas he'll hit a note and he'll jump up an octave, down 2 octaves, all over the place. Mm-hmm. And grabbing that thumb on the bottom is a real great way just to grab that low root note a lot of the time. So
the lower octave of it.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And I guess it also gets you out of that box. You know how sometimes a guitar player will get trapped in the same patterns or the box that they're comfortable in. This is probably for any guitar player, including probably yourself and myself, that you get kind of trapped in these patterns. How would you break that to kind of explore out? Because I know you mix a lot of minors and majors and...
Yeah, I try to mix it up. Everybody gets trapped in something. It's kind of like, your groove becomes a rut after a while, right? You do something because you're like, oh, this is really cool. I'm going to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is the only thing I can do now.
Yeah.
So you get trapped into it, and that usually it's the pentatonic scale. People get trapped in the pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
And I think the way out of that is you really got to start thinking of playing over changes. The thing with the blues, especially, is that you can play the pentatonic scale over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? In B blues, you can play the B pentatonic scale all day long.
Yeah.
But you're not really outlining the changes, and I think that's what jazz players do. Is that when you're hearing somebody play in a jazz context, hopefully, what you're hearing is even if there was nobody playing with them, you could hear the changes underneath just in what they're playing, right? Because they're outlining the chords and they're moving the harmony around. So that's what I try to do, is really outline the chords. So when I'm going from, say, an E7 to an A7 in the blues, I'm playing notes that indicate I'm on an E7, and then I might play tension notes that draw the ear towards the A7. And when I get to the A7, I'm thinking about an A7, or I'm playing notes from that. So, that are in that chord, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is if you get, there's a lot of great players who just play pentatonic all day long, but I think eventually you got to start outlining some chords.
Yeah. You hit the wall and get bored eventually.
Yeah. And everything becomes a rut if you do it for too long. At this point, I'm lucky I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't hit a real creative rut for a little while.
Yeah.
But I've been there definitely many times where it's just been like, oh my God, like for months at a time, where I'm just thinking, I need to walk away from this or something.
Yeah.
But now I work on all kinds of different stuff. Like I'm really into diminished sounds, into altered sounds, major, minor, looking at just different intervals, just kind of experimenting with it and breaking rules, I guess, is what you kind of got to do.
So were you experimenting with that before Humber? Because knowing an A7 or an E7, what's in those notes, some people don't know that theory in full detail of what makes it an A7 instead of just an A.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, when I had one teacher, this guy Jeff Vasey, who taught me lessons and kind of showed me the modes. So I knew the major modes, but that was about it. And I was pretty much playing pentatonic, or stuff I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing, so I might have been doing other stuff. And then I started when I went to Humber. I basically had to learn a whole bunch of stuff, cram for the you have to audition to get in. So I had to learn a whole bunch of vocabulary and stuff, and write a little chord melody and everything to audition for them. So I ended up doing that. And when I went there, one of the teachers there told me something that I found was totally true. He said, you're not even going to understand this stuff for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of the stuff there, and I'm glad I did. But I find now it's like in the last, I don't know how many years it's been, maybe 4 or 5 years, it's really started to, rather than being obscure theory for me, it's more like language I can start to speak. So a lot of that stuff you learn it, and it's kind of like Karate Kid, refinishing Mr. Miyagi's cottage or whatever. He's like wax on, wax on. He's like, why am I,
paintbrush up, paintbrush down.
And so you're basically doing that stuff. You're like, why am I doing this? I can't apply it at all. It sounds terrible when I try to do it. I just run up and down a scale.
Yeah.
And then eventually, somehow it sinks in. I don't know if I could really even figure. I think if you could tell people, here's how it sinks in, there's a magic formula, that'd be it. I think it's just time, man. You got to spend the time on it.
Put the road work in.
Yeah, and suck on it. Basically, if you want to get good at something, you just got to suck at it first, right? Like, that's something for everything in life. Whether it's learning to walk or learning to play guitar, is like, you got to fall down a bunch of times before you start walking. So,
the world of music production is evolving, and gone are the days of everyone needing to sit in the same studio at the same time. With MusicReach, you can create hit tracks with your friends worldwide. MusicReach is a breakthrough music-sharing iOS app. Share your tracks and ideas with your friends and bandmates, using your chords with their vocals, bass lines, piano riffs, and more. The result? A killer final track crafted from opposite sides of the world. Whether you're a beginner musician or pro, MusicReach can and will change the way you create music. This is not just another social app. This is the ultimate musical collaboration tool, enabling you to create stellar music quickly, easily, and affordably. Kickstart your new musical journey by downloading MusicReach on the App Store now. Register and start recording to experience the difference for yourself. MusicReach. Collaborate with anyone, anywhere.
When I was looking at your stuff, I noticed you were sponsored by Fractal Audio. Is there anything you could help people know about Fractal Audio, what products they are? And
yeah, they do. So amp modelers, a lot of people are familiar with like Line 6, Pod, and that kind of thing. And so Fractal, basically, there's this guy, I think his name Cliff. He's some kind of crazy mathematical genius, but he basically took like a guitar amp and recreated in the digital domain, like all the formulas and everything. So it's a simulation, like a software-driven simulation, I guess, of amps. And so the Axe FX itself, I think they're on the Axe FX 3 now, is the latest one they're on. So it's got, I don't know, hundreds of amp models, right, like Marshalls and Friedmans and Fenders and everything else. And they've also got the cabinet impulse responses, they're called. So it's basically got an amp, a cabinet, and all the effects all in one box. And they're fantastic. They're just fantastic. So the pod, I'm getting one of those little red beans, the original pod, and it was super fun. It didn't sound anything like it sounds somewhat like, but not like a real tube amp. But now the technology's in a really cool place where, I mean, I use it live now. I use their floorboard called the Axe 8 Live. And it's great because you can play like a cranked amp without having to weld people to their seats, right? Like at a club that holds 100 people, you can't take a Marshall stack and dime it out.
Yeah, even though you wish you could.
Yeah, you don't kill people, right? So, but yeah, it's really great. So, and you can have your tone the same everywhere you go.
Yeah. And
it's also been really good at festivals too, because you don't know what you're going to get backline. I mean, mostly you're going to get a DeVille or maybe a Super or something. You'll have a Fender and maybe a Marshall up there. But it's great just to be able to go up there, tell them I'm plug and direct, just give me no EQ, flat everything, and you have your sound. So it's really cool to do it that way. And it's less to carry. I mean, hell, that's about it right there. So I really like them. I totally dig it. In the blues circles, which I don't know, I don't really consider myself a blues purist at all, but tube amps are kind of the holy grail, and people kind of frown on digital anything. But honestly, I don't think there's much of a difference.
Yeah,
I've had lots of people come up and say like, "Oh, where's your amp? It sounds great," and it's like there is no amp, man. It's just a digital.
I'm plugged direct in.
Yeah. Well, I actually had one guy come up and he was like, "Oh, your amp sounds great," and it was there actually were amps on stage, because I forget where it was, but there were amps on stage. I wasn't using it, so he was like, "Oh, wow. And your amp sounds incredible. What kind of speakers you got?" And blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Actually, no, I'm not plugged into that." I said, "I'm using this digital thing." And then he kind of changed to like, "Yeah, I thought so." Or something. I was like, "No, you didn't. You thought it was an amp." People kind of listen with their eyes sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'll ever go back. I got a Fender Super Reverb that was like I love that amp. It's a great amp.
It's a phenomenal amp.
Yeah. Like that's an amp. Great, but it's just, man, it's so loud, and it would break down, and all that kind of stuff. So
and the tubes, they're so sensitive, right? Because if they get one little crack of air coming through, it will ruin the whole sound of that.
And they sound different at the beginning of the night than they do at the end of the night. Like sometimes they're cold and they warm up and they start sounding good, and then they get tired, it seems, at the end. It's just like, oh man.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah, and again, like tube amps, even those you can't really give her in a bar or a venue with a smaller audience,
Unless it's a real small one, you can't. But
yeah.
So yeah, I'm super happy with the setup I got now.
And that's Fractal Audio. I'm gonna have to check that out. I have used one of those red Pogs before, but like you said, the technology has changed, and I think back then they didn't grasp that tube sound as well. So I'll have to give this Fractal Audio a go. Cool. Couple more questions for you, and these are more interesting ones. If you could jam with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh man, that is tough. Maybe you know what, Scott Henderson would be pretty fun.
Yeah,
he's so out there.
Yeah.
But then I just end up standing there watching with my jaw on the floor. And probably wouldn't play much.
You wouldn't jam.
Yeah. Actually, Wayne Krantz is a player I've gotten into lately. That's just so killer.
Yeah.
I couldn't hang with him though. I think I'd just be lost. I would definitely love to play with Chris Layton, Stevie Ray's old drummer, Chris Layton.
Yep. Double trouble.
Yeah, that guy's pocket is just so insane that I would love to just to be in the same room while he's doing it. It would be just amazing.
Yeah. Stevie Ray's keyboard, what was his name?
Reese Winans?
Reese, yeah. Supposedly he just released a new album and kind of handpicked a few people to be the guest on each song and everything like that. But you talking about Double Trouble kind of spurred that up in my head.
Yeah, a lot of people don't give Chris Layton enough credit for being a killer drummer, because he didn't play any like complicated, and he's not like his Neil Peart back there.
Yeah.
But man, that guy's pocket is a mile deep. It's insane. His shuffle and his time and everything is just it's amazing. Yeah.
He feels it.
Yeah.
That's just, in my opinion, just as important as knowing the theory, is having that feel for it.
Yeah, well, the weird thing about time, especially with that kind of thing, I've noticed being down here in Texas, is there's kind of like there's a real behind the beat feel in their shuffles they have here. There's a real lazy, like late. The shuffle note is just late. And it's weird because I've been sitting there trying to analyze and trying to figure out, like, how do I get this thing just – and it's not like it's a mathematical formula. You just kind of have to feel it and trust that, where you're going to put it sounds good, and eventually just work on making sound good. So I think there is something to that where you can't really say I'm going to be like X percent late, or I'm going to divide this by this note. You just kind of have to play the note and feel heavy while you do it, or just kind of get a lilt to your playing, get that feeling into your body almost, so that you naturally put the beat a little bit late. But it's a real elusive thing. But,
almost like dancing with it, almost, right?
Yeah. You kind of have to get that some kind of a time feel where it's not just like a linear thing. You've got like a lope to it or something, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean there, because even I notice when I get into it physically with my body, I play a lot better, and you're not thinking of the time as much. You're feeling the time,
Yeah. And if you hear somebody that's got really great time, I mean, you can't help but move usually, right? Like,
yeah.
I went and saw, was it Charlie Hunter? I went and saw, who's just insanely good. His trio, and the whole band had such good time feel. I literally didn't stop moving the whole show. My head was going, my foot was tapping. It was just like, and I had an ear-to-ear grin the whole time. But I was like, the time was so good, I couldn't have stopped if I tried. I was just sitting there, just like an idiot, grinning.
Charlie Hunter's incredible. I actually follow him on Instagram. Did he play the bass guitar where he has, I think it's 8 strings, and there's 2 bass strings at the top?
Yeah, he had. I don't know if it was 8 or a 7. I forget now. But yeah, he had the bass and the guitar going at the same time, running through 2 separate amps.
Yeah, he's an incredible player.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
So I got 2 final questions for you.
Sure.
First one, how do you feel the music industry has changed in the past 10 to 15 years?
I don't know. I think there's kind of multiple music industries, really. I mean, as far as like people that are up at a level like Taylor Swift and Eminem and all those things, like, I mean, that's not even... That world isn't. I'm not even part of that world, nor do I aspire to really be. That's kind of big dollar, crazy marketing, corporate business or music business. Mm-hmm. And people who are kind of like, I guess at a more realistic level, trying to make a living or getting out there and doing your thing. As far as the music business goes, I think you can do it, but you kind of got to carve out your own niche and just do as much as you can on your own these days. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I don't really know what a lot of record labels would necessarily do for somebody other than having radio contacts, I guess, and getting your stuff out there.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can make a record these days, and that's kind of great, but it's also kind of the problem, right? Like, there's so much out there, and how you find the good stuff and, avoid the bad stuff, I guess, is the trick. Like, I still, every once in a while, I'll find a player like, how did I not know about this guy? And he's like in his 50s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how is it possible that somebody this good, like, has been under my radar this whole time? Like, so I should have been screaming this guy from the mountaintops, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't really know that I'm an expert on what you would do with it. Certainly, I mean, sales of records seem like they're gone.
Yeah.
In blues world, people still buy CDs.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I look at like Spotify, the amount I make from Spotify based on the streaming is like, hey, that's cool, but we can go out for a couple nice dinners, but
yeah, that's about it.
So I think I kind of look more as the music is like promotional, and you have to do it live. I think is the only way to really do it, which is cool with me. That's what I like to do, is play live.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the notion of making a record or making music and putting it out there and then sitting back and selling it is really realistic. Mm-hmm. I think you're basically making records as a tool to give your publicist something to put out there, right? You have to have some news, to share with the world so that people will cover you, right? You get into if you have a record out, it's going to go, blogs will review it, you'll get some press on it, but you have to have something to happen. and new music for, I guess, for people that are your fans and stuff. But really where you're going to build a fan base is going out on the road and playing. And that's what we found. Like, we played a fair bit over the last couple of years, and it's just gradually built where now we can fill rooms that we've played for a couple of years. Or I mean, we played Massey Hall. We had so many people saw us there in Toronto and then came to gigs afterwards that said, hey, we saw you at Massey Hall. And so if you can play as many shows as you can, eventually people will hopefully start hearing about you.
Yeah.
I try to put videos on the internet every once in a while, playing stuff, and try and keep, posting on Facebook or Instagram or occasionally, just so people find you that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, like, getting signed. It used to be when I was younger, it was like, get signed was like the big dream. And now it's like, I don't know if that would even be, that's not necessarily a slam dunk that that's a good idea. So,
yeah.
And then of course people like, it's tough to play original music. There's a whole like tribute and cover scene. I mean, you play in a band that does covers too.
Yeah.
And there's lots of bars that are just like, you got to be either like a Bon Jovi tribute act or a Kiss tribute act. Like, tribute acts are big.
Yeah.
Cover bands and stuff like that. You can make a living if you want to be a wedding band. If you're a good wedding band, there's money in that.
Mm-hmm.
But other stuff, if you're going to do it, it's a bit of a slog sometimes. But years ago, I played in a cover band for a while, making a living doing it, and I hated it.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. And afterwards, I stopped playing guitar for like 3 months. I literally didn't pick up my guitar for like 3 months because I got so turned off of just music. I was like, I hated it. And then after that, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do what I like to do. And then, making a living doing it is going to be the byproduct of it, not the reason for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Then gradually it started coming around where that ends up working. But I think you got to figure out what you're going to do. If you're going to, and I don't do stuff on the side that is just to make money, because I find I just need to focus on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't kind of separate my attention between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of spend all my musical energy in trying to do my own thing and learn as much as I can and figure out what it is I want to do, and just get practice and get as good as I can, and then let the chips fall where they may, right?
Yeah.
I think if you work hard enough, you can eke out a living. How far you're going to go, how successful you'll be, who knows?
Mm-hmm. And I guess success is different to each person too, right?
Yeah, for me, the drive to have really good musical experiences is a lot stronger than the drive to make money. So that's what I try to do. Like, when you play a place and like there's like a palpable energy in the air, like stuff happens, it just feels like there's this magic electricity in the air when you get when a crowd's into it, when the band's clicking, and when that happens, man, it's just like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather keep pursuing that and then work on the money side of things than just say, let's play in a cover band. Not that there's anything wrong. Cover bands are great.
Yeah.
But it's just not my thing, because I know that the money's a bit easier to make.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy, it's not even easy doing that. But so talk to me again in like 5 years when I'm living in a box. Or please, I'll play Brown Eyed Girl for, just give me some.
Just give me some money.
Yeah, but no, it's like I cringe when people, poor people that have to play like those songs like Brown Eyed Girl or like, I guess Wagon Wheel's the big one now. Oh God, that just sounds to me like.
It takes your soul a bit.
Yeah. We like to, improvise and do our thing and express ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm in it for. So if I wanted to make a living, there's way easier ways to make a living if you're not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think you answered the second question I had for you with that answer, because it was, what are some things you think the music business could improve on? And I think you nailed it with that, is following basically what is true to yourself. Yeah,
well, that's everybody's choice. Everybody likes different stuff. The guy in Nickelback really digs the music he's making too, and he gets shit on all the time for that.
He gets a lot of shit.
Yeah, but I think the thing that would be helpful for musicians is just to you got to kind of learn the whole process of like booking gigs and that whole thing. And if you're a musician, you're trying to get gigs, you just got to be nice to the people you're playing. That's half the battle. Go in, be on time, play your set, play your ass off. Don't complain. Be nice to the bartender, right? Those are the people that are going to tell the owner, yeah, they were good, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is that you get a lot of venues where where they just bring in bands that aren't great because the band's going to bring in their friends for one night. And then people that go out to that venue see a band that's not that good and say, I'm not going to come back to this venue, right? But the flip side is the venue takes a chance on bands they think they're actually good and gradually build a following. People know there'll be good music there, but it's so hard to get people to go out, man. It's like Netflix is, you know, it's so hard to get people out the door, myself included. Like, it's hard for me to drag my ass out the door, you know, doing that. So you're competing with like social media, Netflix, and all this other, so many other options.
Video games, computers, you know.
Everything.
Yeah.
So, but there are still people that really dig music, and you just got to try and connect with those people. And that kind of happens by accident, organically, whatever, that kind of thing. So that's been my experience, that, you know, gradually people will hopefully find you, and you end up kind of traveling in the same circles as people who are the fans of the same kind of music you're in. So
yeah. Well, thank you for spending the time today. If you could just let everybody know where they can find your music online and check you out live. Yeah.
So www.garycainband.com. That's GARYCAIN band.com. That's my website, and all roads lead to Rome there, so you can find everything.
Perfect.
If you go there, I'm on YouTube and Bandcamp and Spotify and all that stuff. So
awesome. So anybody watching this video, we'll post those links down below that you can easily click and go see Gary Cain live. He is one of the best guitar players I've ever seen.
Thanks, man. Thanks for doing this, man. It was really fun.
You too. I hope once you get that new album out, maybe we can have another chit chat quickly.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure, we'll do that.
Awesome. Thanks again, Gary.
All right, cool.
Seems it, she means it. Daddy's little girl got me. She thinks she's hiding, smiling, throwing them off the trail. But now the time's in, you find it. All the shining ain't she find that you won't.
The world of music production is evolving, and gone are the days of everyone needing to sit in the same studio at the same time. With MusicReach, you can create hit tracks with your friends worldwide. MusicReach is a breakthrough music-sharing iOS app. Share your tracks and ideas with your friends and bandmates, fusing your chords with their vocals, bass lines, piano riffs, and more. The result? A killer final track crafted from opposite sides of the world. Whether you're a beginner musician or pro, MusicReach can and will change the way you create music. This is not just another social app. This is the ultimate musical collaboration tool, enabling you to create stellar music quickly, easily, and affordably. Kickstart your new musical journey by downloading MusicReach on the App Store now. Register and start recording to experience the difference for yourself. MusicReach. Collaborate with anyone, anywhere.